It's 9:10 on this beautiful Thursday morning, December 14th, 2023. And I just moved the cows to the fourth cell of the sixth row. The bulls are in their own row now, the bull calves. You can barely see them. Let me zoom so you can see them. Sorry, I can't hold the camera steady, but they're down there. I think it's about 600 feet away. And I just moved them in. They weren't enthusiastic to move, but they weren't very hesitant either. Once the first one went through the gate, the rest just followed. Hopefully, I have better grass on the pasture than they did in the back 20. I can tell they're depressed, and they're depressed because they're not near their moms and their family. But that will be reunited in May. Then they can do the glorious work of reproduction, the miraculous work of reproduction, one of God's many miracles of life on earth. We tend to look over miracles, and because they're so common, we just imagine that they're not miracles at all. We just expect it to happen. Like a spoiled child that is surprised to find out that dad has to work to make money, and that he'll have to work someday. That's what we are when we overlook God's miracles. It's a well-known fact that the closer you look at nature and the closer you study it, the more you realize what a miraculous thing it is. It doesn't matter what field you study. So I'm a physicist by training. I got my BS, which stands for, you know what it stands for. No, it stands for Bachelor of Science in Physics back in the year 2000. Had a tremendously fun time studying physics. Saw the hand of God in everything. The course on thermodynamics was eye-opening, that no honest physicist can say the universe exists and God isn't real, because the universe itself is supernatural. The universe should not exist according to the laws of nature. I've gone over before that argument, but I'll just cover it for you again. The argument goes like this: if the universe is infinite, then according to the second law of thermodynamics, the entropy in the universe would be maximum, because entropy increases over time. And so the universe would not appear as it does now, where it is definitely not at a maximum entropy. And if the universe is finite, then there was a point in time in which the universe didn't exist, all mass and energy did not exist, and then a subsequent period of time in which it did. And this violates the first law of thermodynamics, which is that energy isn't created or destroyed. It just changes forms. And these two fundamental principles of physics are partly based on observation, but are more importantly based on simple philosophy. And the simple philosophy, the thing that everybody misses, is nothing cannot beget anything but nothing. If nothing can beget something, so if something comes from nothing, then there's no way you could ever have laws that describe what will happen in the future, because at any point in time, any space between something, which is nothing, any space where nothing exists, an entire universe could explode. This is very similar to the concept of abiogenesis, which means life out, or life coming from not life, which, if you're familiar with germ theory at all, Louis Pasteur, who was a Bible-thumping Christian fundamentalist, according to our day's definition of that term, he said that you all are idiots for thinking that things can come out of nothing, that life can spontaneously be created, when the Bible is clear that God created life. God started this whole process, and as proof, he took a glass vial and he filled it with broth, right? Broth that is well known to quickly, quote unquote, spontaneously create life in the form of bacteria and funguses and molds and stuff like that. And then he created a neck on the vial, or the glass bottle, or whatever you want to call it, such that air could pass back and forth but particles of dust could not. And his theory was that the particles of dust in the air are in fact the seeds of life. They're mold spores, there are bacteria and things like that. And of course, to this day, that experiment is continuing. And to this day, nothing has grown in that bottle of broth. After all this time, hundreds of years, and nothing has grown. So that's the genesis of the modern germ theory. Came from the Bible, came from the idea that life cannot be created from nothing, that it does not spontaneously organize, and that nothing comes from nothing, right? So those principles alone should be absolute proof that either that something supernatural is interacting with the natural and causing violations of the laws of physics, the natural laws. And so every once in a while, for reasons that we can't surmise, the laws of physics are suspended and modified and amended by something that surpasses nature, right? So something that isn't bound by nature, but surpasses it. Hence we call it supernatural. The theory that I love the best, the explanation for God in modern science, in the same principle, and the one that I really have a hard time explaining, I don't know if people actually get this, is something that I believe comes from Rene Descartes. It's been a while since I read it, but the principle remains the same, and I've kind of modified it to simplify it, to make it clear, right? And the idea is that you're asking yourself a question. You're asking yourself whether you're asking yourself these questions, and you're choosing, because really you have nothing, you have no evidence that you can trust. You're choosing which reality you would like to pretend you live in. Okay? And it goes something like this. It says either we live in a universe that has laws that govern all nature, or it doesn't, right? That nature is completely random and spontaneous, and it cannot be described by any kind of law, right? If you choose to live in a universe where there is no law and everything's random, then logic and reason have no purpose, and investigating nature, there's no reason to do it. And so you live like a caveman, believing that there are supernatural forces that change everything that you can't control, and that you are destined to be forever a pawn in this game where you have no free will and no choice, right? So Descartes says that he would like to live in the universe of law and order, where you can make decisions that actually have a real effect on the future and the universe around you, where you are a moral agent who can choose between choices, moral choices and other kinds of choices. So let's agree that we would all prefer to live in an ordered universe, or rather, let's take those who would prefer to live in a spontaneous and chaotic universe to themselves. Let's let them live by themselves wherever they want to live, but I want to keep them far from me. The second principle is this: either this universe of law and order has a being that can comprehend that law and order incomplete, right? And it's basically a being that understands all the laws of the universe. Whether or not he created those laws is irrelevant, but this being is able to understand these things. Or we live in a universe where no such being exists. And if we live in a universe where no such being exists, then the problem with that universe is, even though you believe that there is law and order to the universe, you also believe that you will never be able to understand it. And if you will never be able to understand it, it's basically like you're living in a law of chaos and disorder, because you are forever bound to serve forces and principles and laws that you can't even understand, right? So let us choose to live in the universe in which there is a being, at least one being, that understands the laws and order of this universe. And let us let those who would prefer to live in a universe of chaos and disorder live together whether they believe the universe is chaotic and disordered, or whether they believe that they can never understand it, that it's impossible to understand. There's nothing that comprehends and understands all this. So that's a lot we've already covered. The third question you ask yourself is, okay, so I admit that there is a universe, that this universe follows laws and orders, and I admit that there is at least one being in this universe that understands all of those laws and orders. What about me? Am I able to understand the laws and order of the universe? If you say that no, you are not smart enough, you are not capable, and your mind is too finite that you cannot understand these laws and principles, then you might as well live in a chaotic universe with no laws or order, because you're never going to attempt to understand because you believe that you can't understand. And so those people we can send back to the colony of those who deny that law and order exists, and those who deny that there is at least one being who understands the law and order. So we now are left with people who believe that the universe exists, believe that the universe has law and order, believe that at least one being understands the law and order of the universe, and believe that they themselves can obtain such knowledge, right? So a fairly special elite class of people that believe these things, fairly important beliefs. But this is not the end. Oh no, my friend. There's still yet one more principle. Two more principles. The first principle being that even though you have the capability of understanding the laws and orders of the universe, there is no way that you by yourself can understand these things. You need, in fact, this being that understands the law and orders of the universe to teach you these laws and orders of the universe. Otherwise, there's no hope for you to obtain them for yourselves. And so you have to admit that either this being that understands all the law and order of the universe is in communication with you who can understand the law and order of the universe, or you believe that such a being would never take it upon himself to ever communicate with you, and thus you are cut off from any possibility of understanding the law and order of the universe. Let us take those people who believe that the being does not communicate and send them to the colony, because they might as well live in a universe where there is no law or order, everything's chaotic and nothing makes sense, because they do not believe that the being will communicate with them. Okay. Now, let us admit that there is a possibility that in this universe, the supernatural and natural universe, that there are probably beings, possibly beings, the possibility exists, it's not zero, that some of these beings may in fact try to deceive you, and they may tell you that, oh, behold, I am that being that understands and comprehends all the law and order of the universe, and I've come down to teach you some of those laws and about the order of the universe. But in fact, they are lying. So there is the possibility that such beings exist, and we cannot deny that in a world of all natural and supernatural events and possibilities, that is indeed a possibility, right? And so the last step is to believe that this being who understands all the law and order of the universe and you has decided to provide you, who can understand all the laws and order of the universe, and who desires to impart upon you this knowledge, has provided some method for you to determine whether the messages, the inspiration, the thoughts that come to your mind are in fact from this being or from one of these deceptive or deceitful beings, right? And so he has provided some method for you to determine truth from error, right? If you refuse to believe that such a method exists, then we're going to send you to the colony of people who don't believe in laws and order of the universe, because even though you believe that there is a being that understands those laws, that you're capable of understanding those laws, and that being wants to teach you those laws, you are unfortunately not able to believe that you can figure out the difference between truth and error. And so you might as well be living in a universe with no laws or order. Okay, so we now have arrived at modern man. Modern man must believe without any evidence. Number one, that the universe exists. Number two, that there are laws and there is an order to the universe. Number 3, there is at least one being that can understand those laws and the order of the universe. Number 4, that you in fact possess the ability to understand these laws and order of the universe. Number 5, whatever number next, that this being who understands the laws and order of the universe wants to impart upon you the knowledge of the laws and order of the universe. And that despite the possibility that other beings exist which want to deceive you, that this being has also given you the ability to figure out truth from error. And that, my friends, is the sort of universe I want to live in. And anybody else who disagrees with these ideas, I send you to the colony of beings who want to live in a universe where there is no law and order. So you are condemned to chaos. You are condemned to deception and deceit. You are condemned to a life full of impossibilities and improbabilities. And you are thus condemned to be forever cut off from modern science. Only those of us who've accepted these things are allowed to participate in the scientific process, because we are the only beings who believe that such a thing is worthwhile. Do you understand that process? So this is one of those proofs of God, I guess. But more importantly, it's a proof about some of the nature of that God. Essentially, the thing that we need to understand is that, first of all, I want to point out, and this Council of Trent guy, he's really good. He's Catholic. He doesn't like Mormons. He doesn't like me. That's fine. I don't care. He doesn't engage in the stupid emotional babble, but he is pretty good at sticking to logic and reason. And I really enjoy him because he, what's the right way to put it? His point, one of the points of many, is that atheists, when they attack religion in general, they fail to attack Christianity, because everything they say that is wrong with religion is in fact what Christianity says is wrong with religion. And the atheists unfortunately have a misunderstanding of the basic elements of Christianity. Whether intentional or not, it doesn't matter. And so the pop culture perception of Christianity is perverted. And unfortunately, the only way you can actually figure out what is true or not is by engaging your prayer muscles, cracking open that Bible, and attempting to communicate with that being who understands all the laws and order of the universe. And I offer you this hope, this insight, this gesture, that in the Bible we have that precious verse in John 3:16, that this being who understands the laws and order of the universe is in fact filled with such compassion and love for you, who is in all respects completely worthless when compared with this being. You have nothing the being wants. He doesn't need you. You in fact rejected this being without knowing it. Whether or not you know it, you have. But he has reached down and not only come down to try to reclaim you as his, offer you all the knowledge and laws of the laws and order of the universe, but he has shown his great love for you by sacrificing himself in the most excruciating way imaginable. That's a happy cow. In the most excruciating way possible, so that you have a chance to connect with him. So I'm going to touch number 24. She's a good cow. All right, guys, have a great day. Take care and bye-bye.